Two things I wanted to talk about. First things first, are you agreement? We didn't get to cover Rodri thing. You're good with the Rodri decision, and I think that was your guy towards the end. Vinicius Jr. obviously snubbed. Was Rodri the best player in the world last year, in your opinion? And because let's face it, that's what the award is.
Well, I think I said it before on the podcast. My vote personally would have gone to Vinicius, but I would never have an issue with Rodri winning it because it's so, like, for me, it's so close that literally either could have won. Would never, like, you could argue Rodri to me, and I wouldn't really argue back because I think is that close. They're just different. You know, Vinicius was the best player on a Champions League and La Liga winning side. Rodri was the best player on a Premier League and Euros winning side.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't really understand all the discourse afterwards where people are acting like it's some absolute disgrace that Rodri's won and Vinicius didn't, when it's like both weren't exactly like star-studded names that you're going to be looking back on.
I'll give you the reason. I'll give you the reason, and it's probably culture war-ish. Vinicius has dipped his fingers into the culture war to some extent. One of the things that I look saying racial slurs at games and stuff like that, unacceptable. They have rules against it. I'm not going to sit there and get in a debate about that. But I do think that Vinicius incites them, and then he complains to the media afterwards. He incites the ultras and complains, and they seem to be pointing to Vinicius, which I do not think he's the guy. He's not the Martin Luther King of football. And they're trying to make him that guy to some extent. So he didn't get picked, and that's the media's pick, and therefore they're going to have a fit about it. But I think the reality is exactly what you said. You could have picked both of them, and you can't cry about either of them. Interesting that Jude Bellingham kind of lost because he was kind of the favorite, I would say, by this time last year. That he didn't pull it off. I think you can make a argument for Harry Kane. I think you could have made an argument real far down the list. Don't think he deserved it for Florian Wirtz, to be perfectly honest with you. I think they were the type.
That is the thing. Is like everyone's complaining about Vinicius, but Florian Wirtz was nowhere near the top when he was one of the best players in European football. Lautaro Martinez, I think, was massively snubbed. He came seventh despite being. He scored like 37 goals in the Europe last season, won Serie A title with Inter Milan, and won the Copa America with Argentina.
I think I can
phenomenal, and yet he came seventh in the running. You know, like say Florian Wirtz. I think Bellingham might he genuinely had an argument that he could maybe have said I was the best player for Real Madrid. So he could have maybe been ahead of Vinicius. I think there's so much leeway there that to act like this is some great robbery is just absolute bullshit.
Here's another guy.
That Vinicius is playing up to it. Even though I said I would have picked Vinicius, I think fuck that guy, because the way he's acted is absolutely pathetic, and the way Real Madrid have acted is absolutely pathetic as well. Real Madrid won the best club. Carlo Ancelotti won the best manager. You know, they won all these awards, and yet no one was there for it because they were throwing a tantrum because Euros and Premier League winning Rodri beat Vinicius in the vote.
I do. I think this is a culture war thing, and I don't want to sit there and downplay Vinicius. Right, I'm not cool with his attitude and the way he handles himself. He's still one of the best players in the world. Here's my argument. Here's the player you haven't mentioned. Now I understand that one's a winger, one's a center. Last year's stats. Who do you take, Harry Kane or Vinicius? I'm taking Kane, just by production alone. And you could make that argument, and you could make the argument that Vinicius is better than Kane, and I can accept it. It's not like a completely ridiculous thing. There's another guy right there and then.
That's the thing. Like loads of people are putting it out online. They were making fun. Jean-Philippe Mateta, Crystal Palace's striker, had more goals and assists combined than Vinicius Jr. last year
in a tougher league.
This absolute robbery that Vinicius didn't win the Ballon d'Or. He had less goals and assists than Crystal Palace's striker last season, who didn't even get nominated.
Which is a tougher league than Liga.
Where is the outrage there?
No.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Honestly, these awards are media driven. I think if you want to get outraged, the more time goes by, I think people think that Haaland got snubbed. I've heard that before. Basically the World Cup carried Messi to a Ballon d'Or victory, a Ballon d'Or that he really didn't need.
And did City not turn up? Did Haaland refuse to show up
No.
and absolutely kick up a fuss? No. Haaland won the treble last year. He broke the scoring record in the Premier League. He had an absolute ridiculous year. Haaland's year last year was 10 times the season than Vinicius Jr.'s had this year.
Yeah.
And he came second, and he showed up, and he congratulated Messi.
Sure.
City were there, and he was a gentleman about it.
Absolutely.
Vinicius Jr. with, all right, yeah, maybe he was the best player in the league. No, in the Europe last season. But Rodri has a very good argument, and he's throwing a temper tantrum. They didn't show up in anything. That's absolutely ridiculous. Like I say, if Erling Haaland can have a way better season, lose out, and still be a gracious loser, then it is absolutely disgraceful what Vinicius.
There's a lot of people that have gotten probably screwed over the years that I can't think of them off the top of my head during the Ronaldo Messi run on Ballon d'Ors. I'm sure there's a few guys that may have been had better seasons than Messi, arguable that were, or at least close seasons that probably could have got it. So he's not the first one, and I really think this is one of the reasons, although obviously the racial stuff's not acceptable. One of the reasons that he's disliked as much as he is by the fans. I think a lot of people don't like Vinicius stuff, and it has nothing to do with the color of his skin. It's the way he carries himself. And there's a very good card to pull out there. When you don't carry yourself well, you can pull the race card. And I think it's you're not a class act, and that's a fact. You are not a class act. And there's lots of other guys out there with same skin tone that has much more class. There you go.